Welcome to another Inside Track edition of the Digital DJ Tips podcast with me, Phil Morse, brought to you from the studios of Digital DJ Tips, the world's biggest DJ school. This edition, the three topics we're covering are recovering from DJ errors, recovering from mistakes in your DJ sets, how to get past those cock-ups. And this is because Grimes had a pretty mammoth fail at her Coachella set recently, and we wanted to put a constructive spin on this and look at things that any DJ can do to get past the inevitable mess ups. So lots and lots of tips for that. The second topic we've chosen has been brought about by the CEO of Twitch saying that finally, after all these years and after his platform has become easily, by a long, long way, the most popular place for DJs to live stream their sets, to play to the world. The CEO of Twitch saying that they are going to get their ducks in a row and legalise their platform. At the current time and for the last few years, it's always been a huge grey area as to how legal it really is to DJ there, which has brought its own disadvantages to working on that platform, even though it's become the platform of choice. And so because the CEO of Twitch has now said, look, we're gonna figure this out, we're gonna finally get into bed with the record labels, we thought it was a good time to look at all your options if you want to live stream your DJ sets. And we'll also take a quick look at why you'd want to do that. And I will talk briefly about the technology that you can use to do it. And our final topic is an unashamedly one-sided argument from me about why every DJ, whatever format you play on and whatever kind of DJ you think you are, should own a record deck. And this is because World Record Store Day happened Saturday just gone at the time of recording this. So I hope you enjoy these topics. As ever, this was recorded in front of a live audience of Digital DJ Tips students, which meant I got feedback all the way through, and we had some valuable contributions and even course correcting comments from our students, which is always great. If you want to be live on one of these, then head to digitaldjtips.com/courses, look at our DJ courses, and everyone who buys any DJ training program from us automatically is invited to the next and then all future podcast recordings. Just to let you know before we hit the topics as well, that this is brought to you funded completely by those students. There are no adverts in this podcast. So again, if you want to contribute and help, the number one thing you can do right now is give us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts or click the up rating on Spotify or wherever it is you're listening. But if you want to get further involved, then grabbing a course from us will help us to continue to make these. Okay, let's get stuck in. So the first of our burning DJ topics today is recovering from errors, how we get past things that have gone wrong in our DJing. So we're talking about this today because a week or so ago, there was a classic going viral on socials, unfortunate DJ error from Grimes, who messed up in a set that she played at Coachella. And the internet being the internet, people were very vicious and jumped to conclusions and were quite nasty, I thought, at times about Grimes. So we didn't get involved in any of that, of course, being Digital DJ Tips. We'd rather just commiserate with people when things go wrong, but more importantly, look for the lessons that we can all learn from DJ mistakes and from DJ errors. So the first of our topics is recovering from DJ errors. Now, the first thing that I'm sure, if you are listening to this as someone who has DJed regularly, is that we all make errors. In fact, it's much wider than DJing, isn't it? Anytime you try and do anything worthwhile, you're going to mess up. But the thing is, you're going to learn more from your errors than from anything else. And so the idea of being someone who can go through a whole career doing anything worthwhile and not making errors is utter craziness. You're not trying hard enough. You're not pushing the envelope, far enough. You're not taking enough risks. And taking risks is part of the fun of anything worth doing. So look, errors happen. I remember just before going live, I was thinking about what are the worst DJ errors I've ever made. And I remember one where I played a set in a really hot, sweaty, energy-filled, brilliant nightclub that I used to run called Tangled in Manchester in England many years ago now. And it was the end of the night, it's probably 4 in the morning. We'd been on a journey, me and the dance floor, and we had an absolutely brilliant time. It's one of those nights where I just finished it. I had goosebumps on both arms, and I was just thinking, this is the best job in the world. I never want to do anything different to this. And it was quite early on in the days of DJing from laptop. I kind of jumped from DJing on vinyl, which is prone to a lot of errors, by the way. Fluff on the needle would often cause distortion, and the needle would start to slide across the record and stuff. And I jumped from that straight to digital. I kind of missed out the CDJ bit. Obviously, I've caught up in the meantime, but I jumped from vinyl straight to digital. I was very early adopting of digital DJing, and I had a laptop with a PCM CIA card. Anyone remember those? There was a big fat slot, a bit like where you used to put a video game cartridge into a machine in the side of laptops at kind of the turn of the century. And I bought a very, very high quality audio interface that plugged into there that gave me headphones and master output. And I was playing with DJ software very early on. I was writing about it for magazines in the UK and stuff. And I DJ'd a set from software. It worked fine. At this point, I remember I was quite used to DJing with software. So it's 4 in the morning, played a great set, loved it. Feels like this is my calling. This is where I'm meant to be in the world and in life. I was feeling brilliant. And I finished the set, the lights came up, everyone's cheering for one more, and sorry, can't do it, end of night. People are starting to file out. And I made the mistake of closing down the laptop. It was a Windows laptop, I remember. And the Windows XP closing down theme tune. Do you remember that one? Da, 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 or something similar. And I remember just looking up and firstly thinking, what the hell just happened? And then thinking, oh my Lord, that was me. Can you imagine that you've been at work all week and you've closed your computer down thinking, ugh, one more day till Friday, one more day or whatever. And then you leave work and you go to a club and you have the time of your life and you forget everything. And the last thing that you hear isn't the fantastic final song that the DJ played. It's the closing down theme from your work computer. And oh, I felt about an inch high. It was horrible. It was horrible. And I'll never forget it. A big error. I learned to turn off system sounds and make all the changes so that would never, ever, ever, ever happen again to me as an early digital DJ. But look, errors happen. Even if it's just a bad transition, that's the most obvious error, right? We do that all the time. So look, errors happen. We all make them. We all feel about that tool. And I don't think it is particularly helpful to just castigate people when that happens and not look for the constructive things that we can get from it. So I've come up with some things that I think would possibly have helped Grimes with her misdemeanors in her set, but also that we could all bear in mind to try and help us, because ultimately it's not what happens, it's how you deal with it. But there are ways of hopefully making it less likely that things will go wrong in our DJing. So the first thing I think is understand the technology, because the technology has moved on a long, long way from 2 turntables and an analog mixer. So I mentioned fluff on the needle, also bass. The bass could quite often vibrate the turntables, and then you had to try and do something physical to stop that. But ultimately, turntables were extremely simple, and they're a very easy way to play music. Not an easy way skill-wise, but an easy thing to understand. Nowadays, of course, it isn't. Nowadays, the technology is really very, it's a little very, very complex. It's a little bit like in the old days, you could service a car with a manual and a little bit of know-how. But now there's no way, you need diagnostic subscriptions just to plug in and find out what's going on under the hood of your car. And it's the same thing with DJ gear, right? It's been designed to make it simpler to use if it's all working, but harder to diagnose if it goes wrong. But the way around that is to understand the technology, really know the technology inside out, reading the manuals for everything you've got. If you're not a manual person, buying a course that can teach you your software or your hardware. We have lots of those, of course, Digital DJ Tips being a DJ school. Ultimately, your software is usually where the complications are. Generally, your DJ gear, especially if you're using a controller, is just glorified keyboard type stuff. You know, all the clever stuff's going on in your software, which is why we have courses for Traktor and Serato and Rekordbox and so on. But really understanding the technology you're using is so important, because if you don't, then you're going to find it harder to diagnose it when it goes wrong. So the second thing is a full dress rehearsal of something that's important to you. Now, I suspect that if Grimes had done a full run through of her set with the same equipment, all the same files, she would have come across the error that befell her live on that stage at Coachella, which, by the way, if you haven't seen it, she had a track playing at double speed. I think it was probably meant to be playing at a very fast tempo anyway, and it doubled to like 360 or something. By the way, does anyone remember there was a track, I think it was by Josh Wink, who made Higher State of Consciousness. There was a track that just got faster and faster and faster and faster. The BPM went from normal BPM up to like the fastest possible in the thousands before dropping back to a kind of techno BPM. I'm pretty sure it was by Josh Wink. Anyway, a memory from back in the day there. But no, this happened when it wasn't meant to happen to Grimes, and she just had to stop the music and kind of apologise or make an excuse. A full dress rehearsal of what she was planning on doing would probably have ironed that out. So if something's very interested in that, then that's something to do to make sure you check that everything you're doing is going to work away from people. And then the next thing is to have a plan B, because it's all very well rehearsing it, but what if it did go wrong? What if something, despite rehearsing, went wrong? So the other day, this happened to me. We always have a full rehearsal of any live shows here. We don't do the whole thing beginning to end, but we have a big checklist and we make sure everything goes according to the checklist, so that even though we're live a couple of times a week, and I'll talk to you about why that's important as well, why frequency of how you do things is important to avoid errors in a minute. We have a full checklist we go through before any live show from Digital DJ Tips, right? So the other week, I went through my checklist, which includes checking all our pre-roll video and stuff. And guess what happened? We got to the live show and the music we played at the beginning of our live streams didn't work. And there was no explanation for it. Now, I had a plan B, and I exercised the plan B, which I've done several times before. It was all okay. Quick apology, we moved on. However, things can go wrong even if you've had a dress rehearsal. In this instance, by the way, I'd lent a DJ controller against a piece of equipment and it had popped a little SD card out of it. So when I pressed play on the panel, it tried to play, but the SD card that contained the video had popped out. So there was no allowing for that. It just happened. I won't let that happen again, but it just happened. So look, you've got to have a plan B, but you've got to have rehearsed it. So if your plan B is having a phone plugged into the DJ gear where you can press play and then it immediately plays a DJ set that you've pre-prepared in order for you to then get your gear working again, well, make sure that not only have you got that, but you checked that should something go wrong, you know how to make it happen instantly. If Grimes had a 5-minute show reel of music to play, if something had gone wrong, she could have pressed that and reset the equipment and got back to her set with not many people noticing, or even if those who did notice, it wasn't such a big thing, I suspect. So having a plan B, but more importantly, having that plan B rehearsed. What are you going to do if the worst happens? And some DJs have a whole separate laptop with them with everything on it so that they can swap out should their laptop break and so on. But having a plan B is an important thing. So the fourth of my 5 points is move on quickly. Have you ever heard a poor radio DJ where something goes wrong? You know, they cut to the news and the news isn't there, or they go to a correspondent and the correspondent doesn't come in, or normally it's actually the DJ themselves doing something wrong, right? So they feel bad because they've just done something stupid and they feel stupid and they don't stop going on about it. Way past the time that everyone else has forgotten about it, right? So you have to move on quickly if you make mistakes. No one else cares as much as you think. People are listening less than you think. So definitely move on fast and don't keep apologizing if things have gone wrong is an important thing to realize, because imagine that you were there at that event and something had gone wrong. You wouldn't want the person for whom it had gone wrong to keep going on about it. You're not there. It's not about them. right? It's about being at a great event. And so moving on quickly is important, which brings me to my final point. And that is more of a philosophical point. That is this: the more often you do something, the better you get at it. So this is something that I learned very early on in my DJing, and it's something we teach DJs, because at the beginning of your career, you're probably not DJing 5 nights a week. And so every DJ gig to a certain extent is your first gig, because you've forgotten so much about all the things that you should be checking and doing to make sure it all goes according to plan. So you might have one really good gig, and then a month or two later have another gig where some silly things go wrong, and then the next gig you play 2 weeks later, it all goes well again, and then the next one goes well, and then everything goes wrong. It's almost like you're unlearning the stuff that you've learned from the first few gigs, and it's because the gap between the gigs is too long, right? And then if that becomes a bit of a career and you get more bookings, the fact that you're doing it more frequently means you're less likely to mess up, because it never leaves your mind fully. It becomes part of who you are and what you do. And it's exactly the same, to give another example, here at the school. We go live 2 or 3 times a week to our students and to our subscribers. And so to us, it's now part of who we are. It's part of what we do. But anything that you don't do very regularly, for instance, in my case, DJing, I don't DJ anywhere near as regularly as I used to. Now I have to be super, super careful to prepare for gigs, because it's just not part of my muscle memory anymore. It kind of needs relearning. So be philosophical if things go wrong. And I would imagine Grimes doesn't DJ that often. And so that's another thing that was probably working against her in this instance. So there's our tips for recovering from errors, with apologies to Grimes for bringing her up again. I think this is probably where we move on from this particular error, but it's just one of those things that does happen. Lots of you in the comments, we are recording this with a live audience. If you are listening to the podcast version, lots of our students in the comments talking about the 7 Ps. Proper planning prevents poor performance. And I've missed P out there deliberately. And so the P I've missed out is actually a synonym for the word I missed out. P is a synonym for the word I missed out. So what was that word? Answers on a postcard. No plan survives first contact with the dance floor. Mark is paraphrasing, no plan survives first contact with the enemy. Wasn't it Mike Tyson who said, you have a great plan until someone punches you in the face, or something like that? So yeah, thank you very much for that comment there, Mark. Lots of good comments coming in about this mess up that triggered this whole topic. So John says, apparently sped up versions of well-known songs are trendy now. Is that just my imagination? She could have pretended it was real. It was part of what she was doing. Apparently Spotify is working on a paid plan where you pay a bit more to get remix tools, so you can make those kind of TikTok sped up versions of songs and literally listen to them on Spotify as your own remixes. The mind boggles, doesn't it? And we've got some background here, which is apparently there was a dress rehearsal for Grimes' set, but there were tracks added to the SD card at the last minute, and that is where things all went wrong. So thank you for that. We are going to move on now, because another thing in the news this week that caught our eye and brought back into focus something that we do talk about periodically here at Digital DJ Tips is the best place to live stream your DJ sets. So the thing in the news that triggered this was the Twitch CEO did an interview where he said they are close to agreeing with the record labels, close to inking a deal with the major record labels, and presumably that will trickle down to everyone else, to allow fully legal performance of copyrighted material on Twitch. And he was talking specifically about DJs. And this is quite exciting for lots of reasons, which we'll get onto as we unpack this topic. But I think we need to talk about the whole topic of live streaming your DJ sets as well, and why Twitch has become such a popular place to do it. And we'll cover all of that as we answer the question, what is the best place to live stream your DJ sets in 2024? So look, why would you want to live stream your DJ sets? People have been doing this for many years, and anyone who is a fan of Second Life, the kind of original virtual world, will know that live streaming within Second Life, virtual DJing in there, has been a thing for a long, long time. But I think most people would agree that live streaming as a thing for DJs really took off in lockdown, in the COVID lockdowns, because people had a lot of time on their hands at that point, and you couldn't buy webcams and audio interfaces and live streaming kit for love nor money within lockdown, because it just sold out as people ordered it, got Amazon to deliver it to their doorsteps, and started live streaming. Live streaming is a great thing to do for loads of reasons. So at Digital DJ Tips, we teach DJing with our 5 steps of DJing, which I'm sure if you're a student of ours, you will know, which are gear, music, mixing, performing, and the 5th step used to be promoting yourself, and we've kind of rejigged them now. And our 5th step now is called success. And the reason we call the 5th step success, and remember the one before is performing, so we have performing and then success, is that when you have mastered the gear, which is step 1, when you've mastered the music, getting it, organizing it, preparing it, which is step 2, when you've mastered the mixing, so it's what you do with the music on the gear, it's time to perform. So performing is a set of skills in itself. How do you play a DJ set? How do you handle a crowd? How do you program music and so on? But when you've done those things, success, well, this is where everything has changed. Because in today's world, success as a DJ is way, way bigger than being a DJ in a club. Being a DJ in a club used to be where everyone was aiming at, really. But now there's so many ways that people DJ and do it really fruitfully and enjoyably, and a lot of the time the way they do it is all they want to do. So yes, radio DJing has always been a thing, but we have podcasts nowadays, we have live streaming, we have the creation of mixtapes or DJ mixes. We still call them mixtapes, although they're not on cassette anymore. Some are, but they tend to be shared on places like Mixcloud and so on. We have DJing for friends and family, doing private parties. We'll move on and talk about that again in a second. And we also have just DJing for your own damn satisfaction, right? All of these things for everyone from 16 to 80 years old are legitimate ways of achieving what you call success in your DJing. So we've kind of changed our focus to make sure we cater for people doing all these kinds of DJing. So one of the things we did was in lockdown, we did a whole series of live streams. We did about 100 where we kind of got some skin in the game with all of this. And then, as you know, we spend a lot of time doing live shows from our studios as well. It's a big thing for us. So live streaming is one of the things we've really leaned into as a way of DJing, a legitimate way of DJing. So it is a great thing to do for sure. So it's a good way of practicing, but introducing a little bit of friction, a little bit of risk. We talked about risk when we talked about things going wrong, didn't we? A little bit of hell, I'm going to be doing this, I better practice. It puts a date in your calendar. It gives you a goal. It gives you something to practice towards. And so just committing to a live stream, especially say it's every month or something, or even more frequently, is a good way of practicing, keeping up with your DJing, keeping up with your getting better on the gear, getting more music, getting your sets together, and getting your feet wet with a little bit of performing, but without the commitment or the stress of having to do it in public or IRL, in real life, as my kids would say. So it's a good kind of halfway house, if nothing else, to actually DJing out and about in public. And of course, for lots of reasons, mental health, accessibility, and so on, for a lot of people, it's the more accessible way of doing it, right? There could be lots of reasons why it's not right for you to go and play out in public. Live streaming is a good way of doing it. Now, another reason that live streaming can be fantastic is if you don't want to compromise on your music. Because if you only want to play a certain kind of music and you live in a small town, you don't live in LA or London or whatever, then you're quite likely to find it extremely hard to build an audience for your music. If you're into electro clash or underground techno or 90s trance or whatever, then the chances of you being able to perform that in your town when your town only has one nightclub that plays commercial music every Friday and Saturday is pretty small, right? Let's be realistic. However, you go online and you live stream and you do it right, you can build an audience around pretty much anything. You know, we all know the internet opened up the possibility of serving niches of people wherever they are in the world. And Digital DJ Tips was, of course, founded on that. DJing didn't used to be the big thing that it is now. DJing has exploded in the last decade. But when we started, the whole idea of digital DJing, which we stuck our flag into was very new. And people were saying to me when we were making a really good living from this whole business, what, you can find enough people to pay for you to have a job doing that? And I'd be like, pay for me? We've got 6 people working in this company. Another good thing, by the way, about having an online company is that you can have the best people for the job all over the world. But that's a slightly different conversation. None of us are in the same place here at Digital DJ Tips. Actually, 2 of us are, but the rest of us are spread out, a distributed workforce, which means I found the very best people to work in this company wherever they might be. So another benefit of the internet and virtual working. But anyway, I digress a little bit. The whole point about live streaming is that you can find an audience for your niche, whatever it might be. So there's another reason. So another reason is community, contact, talking to people, finding people who are like you. So I've worked with a hell of a lot of big DJs who did live streaming in lockdown and said the same thing, which surprised me at the time, which is I've never felt closer to my audience. Because if you think about it, as a DJ in a, let's say, a medium-sized venue, you're not going to get to talk to most of the people who are there. Yes, you hopefully get a rapport going and you can see the movement and ebb and flow of the crowd and you're reading the crowd as a whole. But the ability to talk individually to people who are your fans isn't really there. And so I had many big DJs say to me that live streaming opened up their audiences for them. And most of the time they absolutely loved it because they were talking one-on-one in the comments with people. So if you are, again, someone who struggles to get out, whose mental health maybe means that they don't like being in big crowds of people, who maybe is into a genre of music not many people are that into, and frankly, you feel a bit lonely about it all, going online and playing a set and chatting to the people who are listening, it sounds very, very good, doesn't it? And to a lot of people, for whatever reason, whether they're big DJs who don't get to talk to their crowds, or they're very small DJs who've never met anyone who's into what they're into, it can be really liberating to have a kind of group of fans who turn up for your live streams and who you actually build real relationships with. So there's that side as well. Now, if you are a successful DJ, live streaming is a good way of promoting yourself, of course. It's what a lot of people do. James Hype, one of our tutors, kind of built his name live streaming in lockdown. And now it's still important to him to do so and to share with his fans in that way, even though he's back to playing in real life. And last but not least, you can make money doing it. So that leads us nicely into talking about the platforms that you can live stream on. Which ones can you make money on? Well, we'll talk about that now. If you haven't live streamed, by the way, it really isn't hard to do this. We have, some of you will know, every year we have what we call the global DJ census, when we ask all of you to tell us about your DJing this year, tell us about how it's been going and so on. And one of the questions we ask is around live streaming. Have you done it? Do you want to do it? And about 20% of you, 15 to 20% of you have actually tried live streaming, but more than half of you want to. So I know that there is a big gap of people who haven't done it, who want to. So before we move on to the platforms to do it on this year, just to let you know, it really isn't that hard. That most people use a second laptop. So assuming your first laptop is for your DJ gear, they use a second laptop. They use a webcam plugged into that laptop. They use an audio interface, which will take the music directly from their controller or mixer and go into the laptop. So you get really crisp, clean audio. They plug a microphone into their DJ gear and just use that to talk as if they were talking to an audience normally. And they use their phone to talk to the audience. So they'll tune into their own live stream and they'll see the comments coming up and they'll chat to people that way, like live. So it's a very simple setup, really. The software you need is free. You use a piece of software called Open Broadcaster Software, OBS. And I've just described how most people do it. It takes a little bit of know-how. We have a course on it called DJ Live Streaming Made Easy. But that in essence is how to do it. And it isn't something that you should worry about. If you've got any kind of ability to set up DJ software or set up modern digital DJ equipment, then it's not a leap too far to live stream your set. But then it brings us back to the question, where to do it. So let's start off by talking about the places that, and this is all in our experience, by the way. You might have different outcomes, in which case do let us know. Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, don't even bother. You'll get kicked off, you'll get bad things happen. It just isn't somewhere that people do this. They don't really tolerate it. YouTube is a good one. YouTube is a good one because it is possible to live stream on YouTube. They do treat small channels and big channels differently. So as a small channel, you will be treated adversely compared to the bigger channels that are whitelisted to do what they want. It's just how it is. But that said, there are ways around YouTube's hoops that they make you jump through, if you like. So the way YouTube works is that they will tell the record labels that you're playing their music, that they're very good at spotting copyrighted music instantly in your live streams. And the record labels, by and large, will tolerate it. They'll tolerate it by taking the statistics from your live stream and seeing how many people are interested in their music. So you're kind of doing market research for them in a weird way. But also, they will potentially take over any advertising on your video, on your replay or whatever. And so that way they might make a bit of money from your live stream. And so that all sounds good, right? You will be told that there's copyrighted material, but you normally won't get told off any further than that. The problem is that sometimes some labels are a little bit more strict than that, and they can either make that part of your live stream and therefore the recording that remains afterwards, because one advantage of YouTube is it will keep the recording for you, and they'll make it go quiet. They'll literally it will just go silent for that bit, which you don't want. So then you have to either edit it out, which you can do, but it sounds horrible when you do that, or whatever. So one way around it is to upload all the tracks that you want to use in your live stream as an unlisted video to YouTube and leave it for, just 10 minutes or something. And you can go back there and it'll tell you which ones are going to cause any live video to be blocked or to be muted. With a red dot, there'll be a red dot by those ones, and there'll be a yellow dot by ones which are just going to trigger the record label's attention, and the record label is hopefully just going to do nothing more than take any advertising revenue, which is the outcome you want, by the way. That's the best outcome. It's not 100% fail-safe, but it is the best way, and it's how we used to go live on YouTube when we did a lot of music live streaming a little while back. We do have a video on it. If you go to the digitaldjtips.com website and go to the search bar and type in the word YouTube as one word, then one of the videos that will come up in the search results will be how to avoid copyright hassles on YouTube. So if you'd like me to personally talk you through how to do that, then go and have a look there. YouTube is good because it has a big reach. In other words, there's a lot of people likely to see your stuff. Your live stream will stay up afterwards, and assuming that you take the best practice checking that I just said there, then the chances are quite high that it will be fine. And it's therefore the best of both worlds. You get the live stream, you get the interaction, and you get a version of your video up there, which is likely to be watched by many, many more people than the original live stream was over time. Mixcloud is the next one to talk about. Now, Mixcloud pushed hard in lockdown to introduce a live streaming element. Mixcloud is a place where you can upload audio mixes, DJ mixes, radio shows, and so on, and they're perfectly legal. Mixcloud has a radio license for pre-recorded radio shows. A lot of radio stations will archive their shows on Mixcloud. It's kind of an archival website. It's a very good, safe place to archive your work, your body of work as a DJ or a radio producer or whatever. But they introduced live streaming in lockdown. And their live streaming was something we were very enthusiastic about at the time because it was legal. And so you could live stream there with no comeback. And the good thing about that is, although you were live streaming with video and they couldn't keep the video for you because licensing, they would keep the audio for you. So you could play live and then your audio would become a recording on Mixcloud, which is how it still works. As I say, the whole system is totally legal. Anything you do will stay up there, which is good. But what's bad is that they haven't progressed it, they haven't brought in the tools, they haven't built the traction, and you get no reach. The only thing you get is other DJs listening into your show, trying to get you to listen into theirs. So it hasn't got the reach of YouTube, and it hasn't got the tools that make it a fun place to either watch or listen to live streams. That said, there is a way of monetizing on Mixcloud by getting subscribers to your channel and giving them extra bits and pieces, a bit like a Patreon or Patreon type thing. But overall, unless you're already a name and you've already got a following, you are going to be fighting an uphill battle to get any traction with live streaming on Mixcloud. Unfortunately, because we'd like to have seen that take off, but it didn't really. Now I'm going to leave the biggest name till last. The next one, which is a bit of a wild card, but we have seen people make this work, is Zoom. Now, Zoom is a bit different, isn't it? Because Zoom is a webinar platform. You can literally have meetings on Zoom. You can have lots and lots of windows open with lots of people's faces in them. And that is what we've seen DJs doing. We've seen DJs hosting private, intimate parties with like 20, 30, 40 people. And the DJ is one of those people, and everyone can see everyone else. It's quite a cool way of using Zoom. I don't even know if it's legal. It certainly isn't what Zoom was made for. But we've seen people succeed, and we've seen really clever DJs monetize that. They'll literally sell you a Zoom party. So this is a totally niche thing, but I did want to mention it because it might just trigger in you a little thought that says, that's what I was looking for. And that is very different to the kind of one-to-many broadcasting live streaming that we're talking about here. So do bear in mind that Zoom is a way of doing it. If you want to host a private party for whatever reason and you want to do it virtually, it could just be that meeting platform that you use at work is a good one to DJ on. Which brings us to the elephant in the room, to the big name we haven't mentioned so far, which is, of course, Twitch. Now, Twitch was a gaming platform first and foremost, but Twitch has leaned heavily into a music platform as well, becoming somewhere for DJs to stream, and DJs love Twitch. I would say probably 99% of DJs who are live streaming, who I know, are doing it on Twitch. That's how dominant it is. You think Pioneer DJ or Alpha Theta, to call them by their new name, are dominant in the DJ hardware world. Twitch has wiped the floor with everyone else, Mixcloud, YouTube, Zoom, everyone, as far as live streaming goes. Now, Twitch has got huge reach, but Twitch has got the social and community and monetization features that make it extremely attractive to DJs. Now, we have been hesitant to throw our weight behind Twitch for one reason and one reason only. It's actually illegal in theory, technically, to be DJing on Twitch, because the record labels have always been, at least publicly, in conflict with Twitch allowing it to happen. Now, Twitch is not some little startup company in Lithuania or something, with apologies to any Eastern European people tuning in here. But you know what I mean. Twitch is a multinational corporate company. It's owned by Amazon, right? So Twitch isn't some small name that is just a thorn in the side of the record labels. So you might have thought right from the off, well, surely if Amazon's allowing this to happen, there's something else going on. And it turns out there always was something else going on. The record labels were tolerating DJs using Twitch to play live because Twitch was actually paying them in the background. And Twitch was paying them an amount of money that they grudgingly agreed to. This is all according to the Twitch CEO this week, because he always promised a better full-term final solution to this. And that full-term final solution is what he now says is imminent. And that means that DJ live streaming will be totally legal on Twitch, which is exciting because it will presumably mean that your recordings can stay there, because at the moment you can live stream on Twitch, you can build a big audience. I mean, I won't go into all the features of it, but trust me, it's really good. You can monetize, so you can charge. A lot of people make money on Twitch from DJ live streaming, but your recordings are a non-starter. They'll be full of muted tracks and so on. You're best off not even bothering. And there's always been this, should we, shouldn't we be doing this kind of like question mark hanging over it. Looks like they're going to legitimize the whole thing. And when they do, it's going to be game, set and match to Twitch for sure. So quite an exciting time. And the answer to my question that headed this whole segment, what's the best place to live stream in 2024 for DJs? It's Twitch. If you get into Twitch now, it's kind of like Bitcoin before it became mainstream, right? People kept saying, get into it now before it becomes mainstream, and you'll be glad that you did. Get into Twitch now before they totally make it legal and all the good things that will be coming, and you'll be glad that you did. You think it's got big now, you wait until that happens, is my prediction. So that is our place that we would recommend if you want to get started in live streaming to be doing it on first and foremost. The good thing about some of the software is it will allow you to go live at the same time on more than one platform. And again, if you're interested in any of this, go take a look at our live streaming made easy course, which we have on the Digital DJ Tips website. So RV Mielo in our live comments says Twitch does mute out some tracks. As far as I know, it's only on the recording, right? But correct me if I'm wrong there. And so a few of you are talking about posting mixes, and in that instance, SoundCloud and Mixcloud are both good. We're talking here just about live streaming though today, but thank you very much for that. And so Twitch is the most convenient way to live stream your DJ set if you just take down your recording afterwards to stop you getting into trouble, says ATGR. So thank you for that. ATGR, aka Mixmaster G, a regular here on the show. So Rick actually says TikTok is all right. So there we go. I did say correct me if I'm wrong. Rick seems to be having good results on TikTok. So if you have good results on TikTok as well, then let me know and we can experiment ourselves and update the advice that we're giving to people. And Apostolis says, I'm in quite an underground music scene myself. So in that sense, it is very difficult to get people to notice you. However, live streaming completely changed that. And so live streaming built the audience. And now, says Apostolis, as long as you're happy to travel, you can also get the gigs. So you're using live streaming to promote your underground choice in music and to promote yourself so that you can then travel to the few gigs that may be a bit further away from home that you are able to play, and people have discovered you online. That's absolutely brilliant. So thank you for that. And Reza is commenting that TikTok and DJing are a thing as well. So something else for us to look into. I always say on these shows, and the benefit of us recording this live rather than in a studio with no students or subscribers here, is that we can correct as we go along and we can learn. You can teach me as I'm hopefully teaching you. So thank you for that. Right, we need to move on, people. Our third and final topic today on our Inside Track podcast is a bit of a fun one for me. This has been triggered by World Record Store Day. World Record Store Day was the 20th of April 2024, Saturday just gone at the time of recording this. And my tongue-in-cheek, slightly cheeky question was, should all DJs own a turntable? Should all DJs own, note my choice of words, a turntable, not a pair of turntables, not two turntables and a mixer, so you can do DJing, but just a single record player, a single turntable. And so I'm going to argue now for fun as to why you should learn. You should have a turntable. Right, so this is it. Number one, and I've got 7 points for you here. I'll run through them. Please, if you're with us live, do chime in on the live comments. So at some point as a DJ or just as a human being, you will own records. And so not being able to play them is a little bit of a shame, right? Record ownership is on the up. It's cool. It's hipster. But you just can't resist sometimes buying a record. They're great objects. It's like buying a coffee table book with the gatefold sleeve and the pull-out poster and the coloured vinyl and all that. Records are cool, and they're getting cooler by the day. Kesha on the live comments says, I found some great records on Record Store Day last Saturday, including Alice Coltrane's Carnegie Hall concerts. Wow, there's a classic. So look, yes, Gerald agrees. All DJs should own a turntable, in capitals no less, says Gerald in our comments. But look, at some point you're going to own a record or two. Wouldn't it be nice to be actually able to play those records? So number two, you can use them to rip samples. So just plug in your record player via an audio interface, or if you buy one of those modern record players with a USB out, you can take hard to find records and you can rip them, either to rip samples or to rip the actual vinyl itself so you can play it digitally in your DJ sets. So just as a tool to help you in your DJing or production, it is worth having a record player for no other reason. But I have a good other reason, and this is something that I've noticed a lot. I have two record players. I have a proper hi-fi turntable plugged into my old-fashioned stereo system at home, and I also have a portable one that I can take anywhere with me. But the one that's plugged in at home, it encourages close listening. So I have a small but very treasured collection of vinyl. If I put a record on, it's an event. Getting up, cleaning the record, taking the dust cover off the turntable, putting the record on, getting the volume right because there's no remote control on it, sitting down and listening to the end of the side and then turning the record over and listening to the other side. It's an event. and you are listening deeply to your music in that way. So if you've got any kind of ADHD thing going on, if you've got a very short attention span, if you're a kind of swiper or a flicker on TikTok and so on, and you're used to 2 seconds of this and 5 seconds of that and so on, it's a bit of a culture shock to actually sit down and listen to something. I went to a listening party for Bob Marley's Exodus, probably the best-selling reggae album of all time. And I went to it in a very colonial library. It was the Garrison Library here in Gibraltar, which is a very colonial place anyway. And the Garrison Library is full of books, old-fashioned books and almanacs and so on. And they'd set up on the wooden floor with all these kind of like low lights and so on and little tables. They'd set up an old-fashioned hi-fi system and they played Bob Marley's Exodus. Quite ironic to have such an anti-establishment album playing in such an establishment place. Anyway, they played it from beginning to end. Listening party, right? Awesome. Except people couldn't keep their mouths shut for the 40 minutes it took to listen to the album. There were probably 50 people there, and at least 15 of them were treating it like a pub by the end of the listening session, because it's become so alien just to shut up and listen. I couldn't believe it. I've been to a few of these things over the years and I really noticed the change. So look, it encourages you to listen closely to music. If you've ever been to a formal college where you study something, then one of the things they tell you, especially arts and so on, is look closely, listen closely, read closely. Don't just skim, don't just take a glance, don't just listen in the background. You have to really concentrate on things that matter to you in order to get under the skin of them and learn them. What better way to learn music, which is all of our passion, than actually listening to it properly? So it gets you closer to the music. And it's cheaper and easier than ever to get a turntable in your life. It really, really is. You can buy a great hi-fi turntable for $150. There's a company called Project, and they're very big. Their lowest turntable in their range is really cheap, and honestly, take it from me, I'm a hi-fi lover. It's really, really good for the money. Project, it's like the word project with a dash between the two. It's very good to get a cheap turn. Now, don't buy the cheap Crossley turntables or the ones you get on Amazon with ceramic cartridges for like $30, $40, $50. They will damage your records. But there's one by Stokio, a company called Stokio. It's a copy of or a remake of an old turntable that was made by a company called Columbia back in the day. And the Stokio Record Mate has got a proper Audio-Technica cartridge. It won't hurt your records. It's got a little built-in speaker. It's got a built-in battery, and well, you put batteries in it, but you can also plug it in via a headphone socket to better speakers. It's a great little turntable. That's what my portable turntable is. So look, there's just one example of a cheap one that is portable, that is better than the Crossleys and the other ones that you'll see advertised for really very little money. But you don't have to spend very much money, and they've got good features as well nowadays. Some of them have got Bluetooth out and so on, so you can incorporate them with the speakers you've already got. So it's easier to get one and get one set up than it always has been. And there's more choice. I've just mentioned you can get USB turntables that are plugged into your computer. You can get portable turntables that you can take anywhere with you. You can get hi-fi turntables, but that can wirelessly communicate with your existing equipment and so on. So the choice is wider than ever. And if you're a techie, if you like technology, and I know I do, then it's fun. It's fun finding turntables that suit your needs, just for this very reason. You can learn to scratch. Now, you don't need two turntables to learn to scratch. You just need one, because you can set some music playing anywhere on any other speaker, just looping, just get a beat looping, and then you can learn to scratch over the top of it using any single turntable that will allow you to do that. And so if you want to practice the baby scratch and so on, but you want to feel how they work with a proper turntable pulling the vinyl away from underneath your hand, then it's an easy way of doing it, right? It's an excuse to get a turntable. If I've got you now wanting one, right? It's an excuse. You can polish up a DJ skill at the same time. But I want to leave you in my list of reasons why, as every DJ should buy a turntable in my view, my list of reasons: it will connect you more closely to DJ culture. And anything that will connect you more closely to DJ culture has got to be worth it, in my view. Just like, let's say you're a blogger. Let's say you came up in the digital landscape as a blogger. Presumably, as someone who is into writing and into crafting nice articles and into sharing how you see the world in words, you're going to be quite interested in buying books, because books were the people doing that before you, right? Before the internet and blogs existed. And so surely as a DJ, you should be interested in records, because the people not so long ago, including me and many of us who are still around, were doing it on records first. And we are connected to that because our lives connect us to that. But even if you weren't, surely you want to put one foot behind you and connect in a meaningful way. And nothing's more meaningful than owning a turntable, dropping a needle on a record, and viscerally feeling part of that vinyl culture. So that is my unashamedly one-sided pitch. You ain't going to get a pitch of why you shouldn't own a turntable from me, even though the website and the school I work for is called Digital DJ Tips, because I think everyone should. What do you think? Javier says, to me, one of the most important things you get from vinyl is the amount of info you get about the song, who produced it, who mixed it, who remixed it, and so on. That is absolutely true. And I've bought CD packs, and I don't like CDs. I don't think CDs is a format that you can particularly fall in love with. But I've bought CDs purely because the CDs booklet that came with the CD was just something I really wanted. And of course, it's why box sets, you know, the big box set reissues that cost an awful lot of money, are so popular with collectors, because you get so much extra information when you get a box set that you wouldn't get with, even if you went and bought the digital files, or of course you streamed the files from Spotify or whatever. So yes, I agree completely. It's hugely compelling to get that information with the music when you buy it, whatever format you physically buy it on. So a lot of you talking about cassette tapes. If you leave them lying around for a few years, you can hear both sides at the same time, says Chuck. Yes, good old cassette tapes. I've got a whole box of cassette tapes that got damaged by a flood once, but I can't get myself to the place where I can throw them away. I'm hoping one day someone will come up with a way of fixing them. So if you're buying a turntable for DJing, says Chuck, only direct drive is worth it unless you just want it for listening. You'd need to have a good direct drive motor, and I agree completely with that. They are certainly the best ones when it comes to wanting to DJ on it, although there are some quite good belt drive turntables. Belt drive turntables are when they have an elastic band basically underneath the platter that's connected to the motor. For instance, some of the cheaper DJ controllers, at least one of them I can think of, has got a belt drive, and it's actually quite good. But yes, normally you want direct drive, and that's where the motor is directly underneath the center of the turntable, and it turns it on its own. Well, that's where we're going to leave it for today. A huge thank you to our amazing student community for joining the live recording and for getting involved in all of those topics, and for the questions and discussions and comments that they used to make that such a rich recording full of other voices other than mine. If you would like to become a Digital DJ Tips student and join in next time we do this, come and check out what we do and all of our courses at digitaldjtips.com. Again, it would be great if you could leave a 5-star rating on Apple Podcasts, or give us a thumbs up wherever you're listening to this. Meanwhile, get good, get out there, make the moments, and I will see you again very soon. Until the next time, bye for now.